things. And, it's no secret, crypto can be a bit of a headache to get your head around.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're diving into Shifter, that's Shifter,
Okay.
and they basically want to make buying, selling, sending, you name it, when it comes to cryptocurrencies, a whole lot easier for the average person. So we, of course, did our homework,
Hmm.
went through all their documentation. We're going to try to unpack how it all works and, what to watch out for.
Right.
Because like I said, crypto, for a lot of people, it's like trying to learn a new language while, also juggling chainsaws. It can be intimidating.
Absolutely. And that's, kind of the whole point Shift is trying to address, right? They want to be that bridge,
Hmm.
that translator. So you can participate in the crypto market without, needing a PhD in computer science or spending all your time on different exchanges.
Okay, so let's cut to the chase. How does Shifter actually take your, everyday money, your euros, dollars, whatever, and get it into this whole cryptocurrency world?
Well, the first thing you do is you, as the user, give Shifter permission to set up trading accounts for you on various cryptocurrency platforms. And it's important to understand these platforms are basically the marketplaces, right? Like a stock exchange, but for digital currencies. So Shifter takes care of creating those accounts on your behalf.
So it's not like I'm sending my money like directly to
Right.
Shifter
No,
itself.
no, no, you're not. That's a very important point.
All right.
Instead, you're going to be depositing, let's say, euros, for example, directly into these exchange accounts that Shifter has set up for you. So it's an account in your name.
Got it. So Shifter kind of sets up the account, then I send my money there. All right. So then how do I actually go about buying, I don't know, say Bitcoin and then sending it to a friend?
All right. So once your, let's say, euro deposit clears, you can then tell Shifter, hey, I want to buy Bitcoin. And then you give them a wallet address.
Hmm.
And that's basically a digital address, like an email, for where you want that Bitcoin sent.
Got it.
And this whole process, initiating the purchase and then sending it, is triggered by, again, a simple bank transfer from your end.
Now, they talk about some pretty impressive speeds for these transfers.
Right.
Under 30 minutes for standard wire transfers, maybe even faster with real-time transfer. I mean, is that realistic?
Well, those are definitely the targets they're aiming for.
Okay.
And in fairness, standard wire transfers can happen pretty quickly.
Sure.
And if your bank supports those real-time transfers, they say your funds could be available in under 10 minutes, which, would definitely speed things up. But it's really important to remember that once they initiate the transfer of that Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency to your wallet address, how long it actually takes to get there, well, that depends on the blockchain.
Of course. Yeah.
Some blockchains are faster than others, and congestion can be a factor. Think of it like, internet traffic during rush hour.
Right, right. Makes sense. So Shifter is handling the traditional banking part, but then the crypto side has its own timeline.
Yeah.
Okay. What if I want to go the other way? Let's say I have some Bitcoin
Hmm.
and I want to turn it back into euros, put it back in my bank account. Is that something they can handle?
Yep, they've got that covered as well.
Yeah.
So using Bitcoin as an example, you'd send your Bitcoin to your Bitcoin account on that exchange that they set up for you.
Right.
Once it arrives, Shifter automatically converts it back into, let's say, euros,
Okay.
and then initiates a transfer to your bank account. So it works both ways.
Okay, so bridging that gap. So for somebody listening who's thinking, hey, this Shifter thing sounds pretty interesting, what are the first steps to actually getting started?
Okay, so the first thing you do is you go through their registration process,
Okay.
and that involves filling out an order form on their website.
Okay.
You'll choose what currency you want to deposit. They offer quite a few: euros, US dollars, Swiss francs, British pounds, Canadian dollars, Australian dollars, Japanese yen.
So pretty much all the major ones.
Yeah, most of the big ones.
Yeah.
And then you pick the cryptocurrency you're interested in, and importantly, you provide that receiving wallet address. Think of it like making sure your package is going to the right place.
Makes sense. And what happens once I've submitted all that info?
Well, they say you should get an email fairly quickly with all those deposit details, and you can then initiate the bank transfer from your end. They also mention that you get access to an administration interface where you can manage your settings and potentially track your transactions. One very important note, though, they emphasize that only individuals are allowed to register. So no companies or organizations at this time.
So strictly for personal use. Okay. Now, I noticed they mentioned something called Shifter PRO plus B. What's that all about?
Right. Shifter PRO Plus seems to be their more advanced offering,
Okay.
wider selection of cryptocurrencies. They list things like USDT, WUSDT, BEP20, BNB, VOWERC20, and it also gives you more ways to fund your account, You can deposit in both fiat and other cryptocurrencies.
So greater flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. More options, more flexibility. And Shifter PRO plus Sella, the benefits also include unlimited use of the software. They'll still handle the setup of your accounts on those exchange platforms.
Okay.
But with PRO plus Al, they also take care of configuring all the data for transferring your crypto from the exchange to your own external wallet addresses.
So it sounds like it's really aimed at people who might be doing more frequent trading or maybe just looking for more options. What about the cost? I saw they had a special introductory price.
Yeah, so for Shifter PRO plus Al, it's a one-time setup fee of 99 US dollars,
Okay.
plus a service fee of 1.75% per transaction, with a minimum of $10 per transfer. But this special pricing, it has two conditions.
Hmm.
You have to register before April 30th, 2025, and you have to make that first deposit within 7 days.
Right.
If you miss either of those, it goes up to the standard pricing, which is a $499 setup fee and a 3.25% service fee.
So incentive to act fast.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Now let's talk about the less glamorous stuff, but still important.
Mhm.
The terms of use, the fine print. Who exactly are you entering into an agreement with when you use Shifter?
Well, according to the terms, the service is provided by a company called BCIT Media Services,
Uh-huh.
FCCO,
Okay.
and they're based in
Dubai.
Dubai,
Okay.
United Arab Emirates.
Okay.
And they refer to themselves as the provider throughout the document.
Mhm.
It also states very clearly that you have to be 18 years or older to use their services. And, standard stuff, if you don't agree with the terms, you can't register.
Makes sense. So what's the core of the agreement? What am I actually paying for when I use Shifter?
All right, so the contract boils down to this.
Yeah.
It's a paid service where they, the provider, facilitate the opening of trading accounts for you, the customer, on those cryptocurrency exchanges.
Okay.
So basically, you're paying for the convenience of them handling that initial setup.
Got it. What about the fees themselves? We talked about the Shifter Pro Plus fees, but is there a setup fee for the standard service and per transfer charges?
Yes, for both the standard service and PRO plus A, there's that one-time setup fee.
Okay.
And the specific amount, it'll be in that order form you fill out during registration.
Okay.
And the important thing to note here is that the invoice for that setup fee, it's not issued until after your first deposit hits that exchange account that Shifter set up,
Oh, okay.
and then it's automatically deducted. They also state that the contract is fulfilled as soon as they've set up the accounts. So regardless of whether those accounts have actually been, fully verified by the exchanges themselves.
So it's about Shifter setting up the account,
Right.
not necessarily me being able to trade right away.
Exactly.
Okay. What happens if, I don't provide all the ID or whatever that the exchange needs for their verification?
Okay. So the terms specifically say if you don't provide all the necessary documents that the exchange requires, well, there's no reimbursement of that setup fee.
Oh, wow.
And once they've done their part, set up the accounts, your right of revocation, that right to withdraw, it expires,
So no refunds.
basically. Yeah.
Okay. That's important to know. What about the ongoing cost, the fees when you actually buy or sell cryptocurrency?
Right. So for both the standard service and that special PRO plus pricing, the per transfer service fee is 1.75% of the transfer amount, with a minimum of $10 per transaction. And this fee is automatically taken out when you buy or sell. And, standard clause, if you don't pay, they might get debt collectors involved.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. Registration seems pretty straightforward. You fill out a form, get your login details. Anything else people should be aware of?
Well, you got to make sure the info you provide is accurate and up to date, right? And they emphasize this. When you click that, register button, you're basically entering into that contract with them. And, they send you that confirmation email. That's when it's official. And they really drive home that point that, once they set up the accounts, your right of revocation is gone.
Yeah, they don't want any confusion there.
No, definitely not.
So think carefully before you hit that button. Now, what other responsibilities do I have as a user once I'm signed up?
Well, you are completely responsible for making sure all your registration info stays accurate.
Okay.
So if anything changes, you got to update it. And if you suspect any unauthorized use of your account, well, you got to let them know right away.
And I noticed they have a pretty long list of things that are absolutely no-nos on their platform. Anything that really jumps out.
Yeah, a few things. You can't spread anything offensive, harassing, violent, discriminatory, or illegal, obviously.
Right.
You can't insult, harass, threaten, or defame anyone.
Common sense.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
You can't try to, snoop on other users or Shifters employees. And of course, no hacking, no trying to bypass their security, no using bots or macros or interfering with their servers. They're also pretty clear about no anonymous proxies. So no Tor or anything like that.
And what happens if you break those rules?
They can immediately block or suspend your account.
So they're not messing around.
Okay.
Okay. What about how long the agreement lasts? Is it a subscription? Do I need to cancel if I don't want to use it anymore?
It's actually not. They say the contract ends once they've done what you asked them to do.
Yeah.
It's to set up your accounts.
Okay.
So there's no need for termination.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're paying for that initial setup, and then you're good to go.
Okay, so more of a one-time thing.
Exactly.
Now, on a more practical level, how reliable is the platform itself?
They aim for 99% server availability, on average, over the year.
Okay.
But they're clear that this doesn't include scheduled maintenance or updates. And of course, any, unexpected technical issues, internet outages, things like that.
Right, right. Stuff outside their control.
Exactly. And they also say you need to have an up-to-date browser to use all the features.
Makes sense. What about the legal ownership? Like who owns the platform, the software, the branding, all that?
They state that they are the sole owners of all the copyrights related to their website and everything on it,
Okay.
including, software, materials, trademarks, trade names.
Right, protecting their IP.
Yep.
Okay, now we got to talk about the elephant in the room here. The risk instruction, it's the part with all the warnings.
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways for our listeners?
Okay, so they're very upfront about this. Trading crypto is risky.
Yeah.
You can lose money, potentially all of it, and they really emphasize only using funds that you can afford to lose.
Right.
And they also say repeatedly, get independent financial advice before you do anything.
Talk to a professional.
Yeah.
Don't just jump in. Okay.
And they really highlight the volatility, how prices can swing wildly, even within a single day.
Yeah. Crypto's known for that.
Exactly. So because of that, they also advise against, funding your crypto investments with credit cards or any borrowed money. And they explain that the price of any cryptocurrency, it's all about supply and demand.
Right. Free market.
Yeah, free market.
Yeah.
And they make it clear that past success, good performance in the past, it doesn't guarantee anything for the future.
Okay, so no guarantees. What about, I guess, risks that are specific to cryptocurrency itself? Not just price swings.
Well, they talk about that too. They warn you about making wrong predictions about the market,
Okay. Yeah.
which can lead to, big losses.
Yeah.
And then there's the risk that a cryptocurrency could just become worthless. Like if some major unfixable problem is found in its blockchain.
Right.
They also point out that there's no guarantee that crypto will be widely accepted as payment. And no legal obligation for it to be exchanged back into, regular money.
Okay.
And they even mention the risk of governments banning or heavily regulating cryptocurrency.
So lots of unknowns.
Yeah, lots of things that could happen. And it's not just the crypto itself that's risky. The platforms where you trade them, they have their own issues, right?
Right, right. What about that?
So they specifically warn about the risk of a platform going out of business, maybe going bankrupt, or being shut down by regulators.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens, well, there's usually no protection for your funds.
No insurance or anything.
No, not usually.
So that's a big one.
Yeah. They also mentioned that in some countries you might need specific licenses to trade crypto, which could make things complicated.
Okay. And I also remember them saying something about cryptocurrency transactions being irreversible.
Yes, that's a huge point. They emphasize that once a transaction is done, it's done.
Okay.
So if you send it to the wrong address or send the wrong amount, tough luck.
Wow. Okay, so lots and lots of warnings.
Yeah. They definitely want users to be aware of the risks before they even think about using their service.
Makes sense. What if I, sign up for Shifter and then change my mind? What about cancellations?
Well, you have 14 days to cancel. Okay. Starting from the day the contract's made. But, and this is a big but, this right to cancel, it's gone if Shifter has already set up your accounts.
Right, right. We talked about that.
Even if it's before those 14 days are up.
Yeah.
If you want to cancel, you have to let them know in writing, either by mail, fax, or email.
Okay.
And if you do cancel within that time frame, before they've set up the accounts, you get a full refund.
Okay. What about the legal stuff? What laws apply to this whole agreement?
They state that the laws of Hong Kong apply.
Hong Kong. Okay.
And they specifically exclude the UN Convention on Contracts for the International Sale of Goods.
Okay.
But they do say that any mandatory laws in your country of residence those will still apply.
Right, so your local laws might override
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
The contract is in English.
Okay.
You can download and save the terms and conditions as a PDF. But they point out that they don't automatically save the contract once you agree to it, so it's up to you to keep a copy.
Okay, good to know. Now, lastly, how does Shifter handle my personal data? What do they say about privacy?
They say they take data protection seriously.
Okay, good.
They collect the info you give them during registration and when you place orders,
Mm.
name, address, email, ordering details. They also collect your IP address.
Oh,
And they
uh-huh.
say they won't share your data without your consent unless, they're legally required to.
Okay.
They use SSL encryption for data transmission,
Yep.
and they say they have high security standards for their systems.
Okay, sounds pretty standard.
Yeah.
Anything else?
They use cookies, both session and cross-session, to improve the user experience, and they provide an email address if you have any questions about data protection.
Okay, so standard data protection practices.
Yeah, pretty much.
And they wrap up the document with their company info and another risk warning, right? Right.
They do. They give all their company details, and then they finish with that final reminder about the risk of losing all your invested capital.
Oh.
Stressing, again, understand the risks, get professional advice.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our Shifter deep dive. For me, the big takeaway is that this service is really trying to simplify things for people who want to get into cryptocurrency.
Yeah, exactly. They handle the tricky parts, setting up accounts on exchanges, converting between regular money and crypto.
Right. And that could be really appealing, especially for newcomers.
Absolutely. But,
Right.
as we've seen, they are very, very clear about the risks.
Absolutely. And that can't be stressed enough. Anyone thinking about using a service like this or any crypto platform really needs to be fully aware of the potential downsides.
Totally agree. And you really need to think about whether this kind of simplified access fits with your own risk tolerance,
Mm.
your financial situation, and how well you actually understand the crypto market.
Right. Don't just jump in blindly.
Definitely not. More research is always a good idea.
So here's a final thought. As these kinds of services make it easier and easier for more people to get involved with cryptocurrency, well, what does that mean for the future of, this whole world of digital assets?
R-
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.